I'm Emily Garland and I'm a gingerbread house builder. What I now do is almost entirely gingerbread replicas of existing buildings, normally quite large scale, but it's all edible. Sorry. Okay. I think I actually initially got into gingerbread because I wanted to do woodwork, but I also liked baking, and it's the perfect crossover between the two. And as soon as I realised that you didn't have to make just a standard shaped house, you could make anything, then I got completely hooked. Some of the things I get to make are epic and I love all of them. We're here in my kitchen studio, which is in Hackney in East London. This year I've got quite a few commissions like this one, which is a private residence that I'm making for a family to have as their Christmas centrepiece. I'm just translating my 2D drawing into 3D cardboard. Always takes loads of time, but then in the end it makes it much easier when I'm baking to know that everything will fit together perfectly. For me, Christmas starts the 1st of September. I've had some things take 3 months and then other things I can do in a couple of days, depending on the size. All of November and December is back to back every day. Sometimes one day off a week, but rarely. And I accidentally do it every year because it's the season. I'm just going to put these bits together roughly so I can start working out the angles of the roof pieces. Then it means I can easily take it apart again without damaging the cardboard, because I'm going to be needing them for templates to cut around. I'm not a trained architect, so the way I always work is to sort of rough it out in cardboard and keep cutting it until it's right. This is the first step of making my dough. I'm going to melt together all of the sugars. Brown sugar, treacle, and syrup, my spice mix. Basically, whenever I come across gingerbread in the wild and I try it, it's not gingery enough. I feel really strongly that the one thing you want from it is that you can taste the spices. I've adjusted the recipe over the years. It's probably maybe at least 3 times the amount of spice that they had in the original, because I just wanted it to taste more spicy. My spice mix is a secret because I spent ages changing it over time and now I'm really happy with it. I do tell people my recipe because I love people to build their own things out of gingerbread. That makes me really happy. But I think the one thing I'll keep to myself is exactly the ratio of spices that goes into it to make it so that mine's always exactly mine. I have a recipe that doesn't have any raising agent in it, so it's got no eggs and no bicarb or anything that would make it puff up in the oven. That means that when I roll it out really flat and cut the shapes out, I know they'll hold their shape in the oven, which is really important. And it's quite a strong structurally, but not too tough to eat it. I think it's quite a nice balance. I've spent a long time working on my dough recipe. So my biggest tips for people who are starting out trying to make a house at home would be to make sure all of the pieces are baked to the same amount. If you're trying to just build a gingerbread house, but one of the walls you didn't realise was slightly underbaked, the whole thing won't work. So I have a special rolling pin that I use, which has these rollers on, so you can change these to have different thicknesses. But I find them really useful, or you can use dowels to keep it completely even as you're rolling it out. There are some tools that I use. I think of them more like carpentry tools now. I've got 2 very good quality knives, and then the zester, that's my favourite tool. And I use these miniature silicone spatulas that are pointed, which I sometimes use those as a sort of trowel, like a bricklayer might use to build a wall, and you can pick up icing with it. But also the tip of it means that you can really tidy up edges. So some of the pieces are easier to cut than others. The smaller the pieces, the harder they are. So now I've cut the pieces out, it's time to put them in the oven. Because I cut them directly onto the sheet, I just carefully slide it on, and then it's ready to go. The next step is to make the glue, which is also the icing, which is water mixed with meringue powder, which is basically dried egg white. And then while that's whisking together, I sift the icing sugar ready to put in. The egg white in royal icing is the key ingredient because it makes the icing completely set, really solid. What I'm going to do once it's mixed is just dye some of it with food colouring to sort of match the colour of the gingerbread, to have brown icing for all of the joints, so it makes it very slightly less noticeable. And then I use white for decorating and for around the outside, and there's snow if you want snow on the ground, that kind of thing. So I just add the icing sugar really gradually, and then I'm going to whisk it on high for about 5 minutes. This consistency works really well as the glue. This is the shape we've ended up with to fit in here. Just trying to make sure everything lines up really well. But then my most used tool is my zester, which I use as though it's the kind of like woodworkers use filing. And I use that on almost every single joint, because even though the biscuits bake very well and they don't tend to spread in the oven, I neaten them up to make them really square before I start. Also to avoid having loads of icing spill out afterwards. So this is some of the icing that I've dyed brown. I'm just gonna ice along all the exposed edges. So I'm just going to add this little side roof piece here. Just going to file these down a bit before I start. Some pieces are small enough that they hold up on their own, which is excellent. When I'm doing the big pieces at the beginning, I have to use a lot of jars and stuff to help hold it up. The icing, although it sets really solid, it takes a good couple of minutes before it's got a good purchase on the pieces. It's all sort of a balance. Once it's in place, I tend to leave things for about 24 hours before I'd say it's all completely solid. But after that time, it is surprisingly strong. I think the icing ends up stronger than the biscuit. I make edible piñatas, so that whole thing's made out of biscuit and then full of sweets. Once it's all covered in icing, it becomes really surprisingly difficult to smash. This I always find fascinating because I think almost everyone else assumes I must hate it when my work gets destroyed, or how could I bear it that I spend so many hours making something only for it to be demolished. But I actively feel the opposite. It's my favourite bit of it, is to know that someone's going to enjoy it, and the only way for them to properly enjoy it is to eat it, and the only way to do that is to completely destroy it. It's just part of it, and I think it's almost more joyful to be making something so temporary. I love seeing people smash them to bits. It brings me so much joy because I know that then they're properly enjoying it. So it depends on what kind of building I'm doing as to how much detail goes into each element. I am making as good a replica of it as I can, but in the end it is biscuit. I want to retain the sort of essence of the building, and so it could be instantly recognisable. With this one, I think we're pretty close to the real thing. I'd say nowadays about half my work gets eaten and half of it doesn't, and it just stays on display, which I find quite odd. But I still think it's important to use my same recipe, because if I wasn't making it actually delicious, what's the point? I'd just make it out of wood or something. Part of the enjoyment of it is the smell, and if you have a big display piece, I had one where it was as part of a large exhibition hall, and you could smell the gingerbread from metres along before you found it. That was really lovely, and I think having that smell of the real recipe is an important part, even if it's just for display. I like to use quite a range of things to decorate my buildings, and it always depends on the client and what kind of finished look they want. Sometimes people want a very realistic version of the building, in which case I would just use quite simple colours or other types of royal icing to attach things like baubles and little sprinkles and things, just to make it slightly more decorative. One of my favourite things to use though is this edible metallic paint. You can get this luster dust and you mix it with alcohol, and the alcohol evaporates off and leaves just the dust behind, and so you can paint with it and get some incredible finishes, which I love using. Because also I have, just from a personal point of view about eating biscuits, I often get disappointed if there's too much icing on the biscuit when you're eating it, because you just want to be able to taste the flavour. And I want that from my gingerbread as well. So I like using things where it's on the surface, but you can still see the texture of the biscuit and the colour of it behind. One of the things I like to do is I use a lot of small dots and edible sprinkles and balls in my work to make the equivalent of things like stonework and extra detailing around windows and stuff. This is some of the bits where I take a bit more artistic license at this stage, because once you've got the feel of the whole building, I start to try and picture it more as a finished gingerbread piece and think about the most sort of decorative, fun elements to add. Obviously no house has big balls of icing to the side of the door. It would be nice if they did. Sometimes just these bits can make all the difference from the way it looks. You can end up having quite a plain facade to a really Christmassy building just from these few decorations. I always enjoy this bit a lot. It took me a long time to find my particular style when working with Gingerbread. If I have made a London installation or something, I will have messages from people going, I know that this is you, which is really lovely. And I think it's that I've developed this sort of look that is maybe slightly different from the norm, where I don't really overly decorate with icing, and I like to have those clean lines and focus on the structure of the building as much as the decoration of it.
Have you ever considered going on a bake-off?
Okay, I'm not allowed. Because if you've ever earned any money from baking, you're not allowed to apply. So I do always watch Biscuit Week on Bake Off, and I find it surprisingly stressful. I spend too much energy willing them on to make sure that they don't collapse. And it's quite energy sapping. But I love to see it. The one thing I still have is the same excitement and sort of childlike enjoyment of playing with biscuits. That's what I want to encourage other people to do it for, because it's such a childlike joy from playing with food. To anyone who's thinking about making a house this Christmas, I would say just have loads of fun with it. Maybe try and make something a little bit different out of gingerbread and have a really happy Christmas.